Right, looks like we are now all good to go. So, hello and welcome to our very first episode of Fireside Chats at HealthHub. Woo! We're hoping to introduce these talks in a monthly series ranging from topics of healthcare to business to social causes and everything and anything in between. Our first episode is actually coming out on International Women's Day. And so for this episode, I wanted to sit down with you, Lisa, and talk about women in business and just get to know you a little bit better. So without further ado, thank you, Lisa, so much for being here today.
Oh, thanks, Katrina. I'm very excited to be your guinea pig.
Yes, we will work through this together. We'll get those like first episode jitters out. Now, Lisa, you are our Chief Financial Officer here at HealthHub, in case anyone didn't know. And in your time here, you've been inspiring other women in our company, including myself. You have also been vocal about supporting mental health initiatives and empowering tomorrow's business leaders. To start off, could you just walk me through a bit of your journey and how you got to where you are today and what's motivated you along the way?
Yeah, thanks, Katrina. That's such a sweet introduction. I think it's definitely interesting being the CFO at HealthHub and seeing so many really wonderful women, within the organization's ranks, and all that they're doing, within the healthcare space and for the business generally. And it's really fun for me to kind of try to be a role model for all of you. So. Um, in terms of sort of how I got here, I kind of fell into finance, really. I think I found a accounting course in high school that really just sort of fit into the schedule. And from there, I really realized it wasn't about just adding things up and putting things in the right boxes, but there's actually quite a bit of problem solving and, really some interesting ways in understanding businesses that comes out of being an accountant and and a finance professional. And for me, that was extremely interesting. And being able to use the numbers that are so important to every single business to really make decisions on and help drive an organization forward, I think is such an interesting career path. And so from there, I really just found ways to get whatever experience I could, whether that was a little bookkeeping business I had for a while on the side, or, co-ops and, jumping, from different industries and all those types of things. I really worked to put myself in situations where different experiences were possible. At one of my first jobs in Toronto, I actually worked as an auditor. I worked in the tax department. I worked with small businesses. And last, I really put myself in a position to be able to work as an outsourced controller or CFO, and that really sort of launched me onto the path towards HealthHub.
Oh, that's awesome. And we're very happy to have you here. It's like interesting that you're kind of speaking about how there is just the hard numbers, but then also there are people, there are businesses, and an entire culture behind those numbers as well, and wanting to support that just instead of the black and white, there is such a gray area in there as well.
Yeah.
Perfect. Now, along the way, I'm sure you have encountered some obstacles or any biases. Is there any examples that you could draw on, and how did you overcome these barriers to your success?
Yeah, I think most people know I've got a pretty big personality.
There's nothing wrong with that. We love to hear.
Well, you're right. There is nothing wrong with that. But it took me a long time to really figure it out. And as I started to approach more senior levels in my career, I was often told during my performance appraisals, "We love your personality and how outgoing you are and how passionate you are. But could you just like dial it back a little? We're not really sure if people are going to think that you can be professional in the right sort of circumstances."
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, I'd already worked there for multiple years at this point. I'd already had the opportunity to prove, that I could be professional and that I did know sort of when to walk that line a little bit more and when my personality was able to come out a bit more. And, and so it was a little frustrating because, was it because I was a woman and we're not supposed to be that outgoing? Was it because I was an accountant and we're not supposed to have a personality at all? Like,
Yeah.
I don't really know. And so, but I think at first the feedback really made me angry and offended.
Mhm.
It was incredibly contradictory. It was very vague. I wasn't ever given an example of a time where my personality had gotten in the way of my professionalism or anything like that. It was really a 101 lesson of how not to give feedback.
Yeah.
Um, and, so I kind of got to the point where I started all of my performance reviews with, okay, so you love my personality, you just want me to take it down 5 notches. What else you got for me this year?
Yeah.
And I sort of decided, and so did they, that we would just agree to disagree. I wasn't really doing anything wrong, or I wasn't doing anything wrong at all.
Mhm.
And I didn't really know how to change what they were seeing without fully becoming someone else. And
Mhm.
so I think that this really worked kind of well for a while, particularly while I was with that organization. But then when I moved on, all of a sudden it really hit me like, oh man, have I just, gotten too used to these relationships? Have I taken that for granted? Is my personality too much? Like, should I be considering how I come off to people? Of course, all of that worrying was for nothing.
Yeah.
My next boss absolutely loved my personality. She fully encouraged my professional level of outspokenness and really encouraged me to use my voice more.
Good. I'm It's so interesting because as you were talking, you're kind of addressing my exact thought process. Because as soon as you said that you were being told that your personality, oh, we love it, but it's just a bit much, I was like, excuse me, what did you just say? And like I know that I've had similar like feedback as well, being like, oh, she's great. mm, but like can be a little bit extra sometimes. So I'm really glad that you have gotten to a point and like got that feedback within your career if you know what, like I trust you, I know that you're going to be able to gauge the situation and be like yourself, you're not changing who you are at your core, but then you can also put on that like business professional persona, if you will, or hat, and address the task at hand. So yeah,
Yeah,
definitely quite a range of emotions listening to you talk right now. Um, Perfect. Well, I am glad that you're able to be yourself. I know that like women in general have, I guess there's always an unspoken error if you have to make yourself smaller. Like it's a privilege that you're in the room to begin with. So just don't make too much commotion. And I feel similarly in the sense of like, well, I'm here to disrupt. If I've gotten in this room already, then I'm going to challenge the system. So, and I know that definitely has changed over time. Um, and I guess I'm curious, like, where this drive has come from. Like, has there been another woman in your life, or even men who have pushed you to be who you are and really embrace your personality and all of your like flaws, imperfections, and all the wonderful stuff as well? So yeah, just who are your inspirations for that?
my inspirations, many. I think, you know, um, my team every single day inspires me. The all
Awesome.
of the women at HealthHub and everything that they do inspires me. Um, on December 15th, my little niece was born. She was 16.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, she was 16 weeks early.
Wow.
And, having the opportunity to, from a few provinces away, really sit back and take a look at, the fight and the struggle that she has had to grow and develop and really just survive has been
Hmm.
inspiring. And, to see my sister-in-law, not completely crumble under the pressure of having, her first baby in the NICU, and all of that, I think really has been inspiring. And I think that's the thing with inspiration, is we don't really know we don't really know that we're inspiring
Yeah.
anybody. And we sometimes don't even know that we are being inspired.
Yeah.
And, as I really think about this, I automatically go to my mom and my aunts. And, when I was growing up, they were exactly that, my mom and my aunts.
Hmm.
They weren't rich and famous. None of them did anything particularly heroic or, fascinating. They were just ordinary women, most of them mums, who worked full and part-time jobs and really just kind of tried to figure it out. Looking back, they were they were always there for each other. They were always there for family. They did their best at work and home. Not a single one of them had it all figured out.
No, and I think that's the secret to like as you get older, you're like, you know what? Everyone is just making it up as they go. No one actually has it figured out.
Yeah, but you know what? Each of them took whatever challenges life threw at them absolutely head on. And I think looking back on that, and I didn't really see any of those challenges as a child, right? They really just sort of hid them and put that superwoman cape on, and really figured it out. And they had the support of each other, and everything that way. And I think looking back on it, that was extremely inspirational and instrumental to sort of who I am today. And so I think what I've really learned from that situation is that, you know, if you're ever in need of inspiration, look around. It's actually everywhere. And but we also have to be careful with that power, because we never know when we're unintentionally inspiring somebody else. And so, I really think that setting that right message in everything that we do becomes so much more important when you do realize that that's what's happening.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I know I'm thinking about my mom as well, and just as I'm growing up and trying to maintain my own like work-life balance and that sort of thing, there's so much that happens behind the scenes. And I one thing that fascinates me a lot is the mental load of women and just how much it is being organized in a mental filing cabinet as well. So just I love to hear that your mom and your other like female family members have been there for you, and you've been able to reflect on that. Do you feel that based off of like the unique challenges that women face, that we should have more women in decision making roles? And how would that like even just the experience that you're talking about with your niece in the NICU, um, how do you think those sort of experiences influence a woman in the workplace?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting question, Katrina, because I think, as long as somebody's coming about decision making from a very human perspective, I'm not sure if it's a man or a woman, whether it's a man or a woman
Mhm.
matters personally. I've been extremely lucky to work with some really fantastic men. Um, you know, 80% of my mentors are men. And that's not necessarily because I didn't have the opportunity for more female mentors.
Mhm.
I certainly was exposed to a lot of female mentors. Um, but I think some of the things that I've been able to learn from my male counterparts and from some of the men that I've interacted with have been just as rewarding as what some of the women have brought. And
Mhm.
if I'm being really honest, and this is probably not going to be the most favored opinion of
Go for
mine,
it.
but I think that most of the frustrating and unconstructive feedback that I've received throughout my career has actually come from women. And I think until we're ready to really put down the swords against each other
Mhm.
and spend every single day building each other up and really helping each other get to the top instead of thinking that there's only one spot for all of us.
Yeah.
It's really a lot to sort of ask for men to figure it out for us, I guess. And so, I mean, look at Mean Girls, right? Everybody
Yeah.
loves Mean Girls. That movie is hilarious. Everybody knows it. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
It's relatable. We've all experienced that as women. And I think once we can get that out of the boardrooms and out of the middle manager levels and really work towards building each other up, that's where we're going to see our greatest triumph to the boardroom and against the glass ceiling.
Yeah, it's not an us versus them situation. Is we all have to work together to get there. There is actually like a UNICEF initiative. I'm not sure if it's still active, but it was called Girl Love, and it was basically creating this idea of we need to stop this women on women hate. Like we need to be there for each other. No one understands our experiences better than each other. And you're right, it's not just one spot at the top that we're fighting for. We're all trying to lift each other up. And my sister's success is going to be my success too, you know?
Yeah, and look, I don't think that this is the norm. I don't think that women go out
No.
purposely trying to
No.
bash each other or keep each other down. I don't. I do think that, as with anything, there's some bad apples. And, until we can sort of figure that out, we need to clean up our own backyards first, I
Yeah,
think is my message.
absolutely. Take care of ourselves, take care of
That's
others.
right.
And then, in light of taking care of ourselves, I wanted to ask you. You have been very vocal about your work with mental health initiatives and specifically Project Talk to Me, Johnny, which thank you so much for putting out your message as well. For anyone who's listening that isn't familiar, please go check out Talk to Me, Johnny. It's amazing to see the work that Lisa is doing. And I did just want to ask about what strategies you've employed to achieve a work-life balance. How do you prioritize your mental and physical well-being? And I guess as well the struggles that you have with that.
I think you're giving me a little too much credit here, Katrina.
Well, I mean, it's important to talk about, right? Like we're not going to be diminishing ourselves, right? You deserve all the praise.
No, I do appreciate it. I have to tell you, when it comes to work-life balance, I'm not sure I'm your best role model. I work a
Okay.
lot, probably a little too much. So does my husband. That's just really where we're at in our careers and sort of what works for us right
Mhm.
now in building the life that we want together. But, we also take care of elderly parents. We have nieces and nephews who, with a single phone call, have our undivided attention and,
Mhm.
pretty much whatever they're asking for on the other end of that line. And then, as you mentioned, I have the nonprofit organization that I run with my family in memory of my brother, and I sit on two different charities
Oh, wow.
boards, both work towards mental health for military and first responders also. So uh, I think I'm actually afraid of relaxing.
Understood. I get that. It's like, oh, I've
But
got this time. Now what do I do?
I know. So, in all honesty, though, I think work-life balance is a very, very personal thing. There's no like amount that
Mhm.
necessarily works for every single person. And I think it really changes depending on where you're at in your life. My husband and I are both in sort of the prime of our careers and have been able to work to some very successful positions. And so that does take up a lot of our time and our energy. Um, and so, I don't really think that there's sort of this like, I have to spend 25% of my time here and 10%
Mhm.
there and, these types of things. But I do really think that it comes down to, what are your values and how are you prioritizing those things? And, when I lost my brother a couple of years ago, boy, did my values get a kick because I realized that what I valued was not necessarily where I was prioritizing. And that's not always 100% easy. But I think once you've really got a good understanding of what those values are and how you prioritize them, and what those rankings look like for you, then you're able to, in a better way, to sort of put things together and make sure that you're making time when you need to make time for the things that come up. And so, when we've got my brother's kids, that's it. I don't work those weekends.
Yeah.
My husband doesn't work those weekends. That's fully devoted to them. And when his niece and nephew come from Norway, because we only see them
Wow.
once a
That's
year,
amazing.
we dedicate as much time as we can to being able to spend time with them,
Yeah.
and be around for the things that we need to be around for. Um, I think life's about choices, and no one is perfect. And so I think that is probably my biggest struggle, is while I'm worrying about, making sure that family's taken care of and I'm prioritizing that value for myself, and, I'm really working on my work ethic and, delivering on sort of that value, um, to remember that being human is okay.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and hanging up my superwoman cape and sort of taking that time for myself to de-stress and
Hmm.
and really kind of relax for a few minutes is doesn't mean that I'm deep yeah deprioritizing anything important. It's just a necessary step in making sure that I can show up, in my best self for my team and my colleagues and my family.
Absolutely. Um, I was listening, it was probably a couple of weeks ago, but there was a podcast that I was listening to, and it was basically around the idea of work-life balance. And she was saying, it doesn't actually exist. It lies within periods of intention. And as you were saying, is it shifts throughout your life and where you're at. And so I definitely think that's important because I feel like it's been so drilled into us. Like, no, no, you must hang up your phone at this time. And it's like, yes, I absolutely support that. But at the same time, if me spending a little bit of extra time doing this now helps me for tomorrow and helps take that off my plate tomorrow, then it just helps to create a better mental headspace in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Um, I just wanted to, I guess, similar but shift the gears a little bit. I was curious about how you would define success. And what would you say is the most important skill that has you either already have or you learned along the way to help you feel successful?
Ooh.
I know it's a loaded question.
Yeah, that is a loaded question. Um, I think I think success is about relationships and the relationships that you're able to cultivate. I think it says a lot about a person when um, when they've always got somebody that they can pick the phone up and ask any question to.
Mhm.
And, as I said, I've really made sure that I've surrounded myself with some great mentors. And, some of them I've met randomly, like on the street, and
Yep.
struck up a conversation with somebody. And, 12 years later, I still call him for the occasional, advice on my
Yeah.
career and my career path. And I think really having that integrity and that trust, from other people, says a lot about how you've conducted yourself through both your career, but also your life. And, I think, you know, should success be measured in the zeros in your bank account or the number of people in line at your funeral? I'm leaning towards the latter.
Yeah.
I think, money certainly makes things a little bit easier at
Yep.
times, and I think that that can be important. But I also think that being able to really come out with really awesome relationships, both with the women around you, but also, your family and the men that you've worked with, and um, all of the people that you've sort of touched in life is far more important. And how I do that? Oh, good question.
I know, I
um,
feel like it sometimes lies in just those odd encounters that you're never really trying to make that connection, but all of a sudden it's like, wow, this is my best friend.
yeah, and I think, like the path to any successful relationship is always through kindness and respect.
Mhm.
And I think as long as we're showing that on a daily basis in everything that we do, um, you're probably never still going to get it 100% right. But you're never really going to fail either.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the idea of community, and I especially think it's difficult in our society. Like, I'm thinking about like North American society, especially because if you look at our society, we're individualistic. But then when you talk about the psychology of collectivism and being able to say, you know what, for most of human history, we have had each other. We've had these large communities in order to rely on and help. I think that makes such a difference. And this all ties back to what we were saying about like the idea of feminism in the workplace and tying it back to like International Women's Day. This is a collective challenge that we're all working on. And the only way we're going to get there is together and supporting each other through those very human moments as well as our successes.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that statement.
Perfect. And then I just have one final question to kind of wrap up our chat. What message would you like to share with women or anyone listening for that matter, who are pursuing their dreams and wanting to make a difference? Slash, do you have one piece of advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a million pieces of advice that can really work, especially on such an important day. But one of the things that I would say is professionalism and respect will always be top notch in everything that you do and should be at the forefront of everything that you do. But don't be afraid to be unapologetically you.
I love that. I love it so much. Um, Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to have this conversation with me. And just, I'm very glad I had the opportunity to get to know you a little bit better as well. Thank you to anyone who is listening for reaching the end of our chat. Lisa, do you have any last words that you'd like to share before we, I guess, say part ways?
I think you did a great job on your first time, Katrina. Congratulations. And I
Thank
really
you.
look forward to seeing what you do with these in the future.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That will now conclude our fireside chat. I'm going to stop the recording. And thank you everyone again for listening in. I hope to keep this conversation going. If you have any thoughts, definitely uh, input them in the comment section as well. And together we can make a difference. Happy International Women's Day. Woo!